Welcome everyone to this live stream, in case we are live, more or less, maybe. Anyway, I already excuse in case the video is stuttering today, because I already know that I overload the aging Mac Mini with two HDMI Full HD video capture streams. So as people don't like very much when I talk about environmental and political stuff, I better don't say that today is Earth Overshoot Day, July 29th, when humankind used as many resources as the planet Earth can regenerate in a year. So I better don't mention that and immediately go here to some news. By the way, did I not open the right news here? Here I opened the news, and yeah, also thank you Firefox for that amazing usability. I wanted to point this out some days ago, but we will also talk about something less vintage and about HDCP on the PS3, because that is also the reason why the Mac Mini is overloaded, because we have HDMI capture, hopefully, in case, yeah, there it is, unless Petit Boot already suspends his video for all the time setting up the live stream. This is also why today my scene keys are mixed up, because usually this HDMI is my main camera capture. So what is the thing here with this S3 driver? I wanted to point out a little bit that, yeah, first of all, probably some of you are not the most interested in vintage video driver stuff, I guess. But one note, I'm getting slightly tired of news that maybe are not the most amazing news. Not only that it's vintage S3, but yeah, graphic driver is still alive and well in Linux. Yeah, well, I would maybe not say, yeah, also the news summary, live and well, yeah, not so well. There was the first new open source XF86 video S3 driver update in 7 years. Amazing achievement, well done. And Kevin Brace, open source contributor known, working for NVIDIA, Open Chrome driver and vintage open source graphic drivers, took the release, releasing 07, which it's been 7 years since its previous release, 6.5. There's, yeah, what I wanted to point out is a little bit code review. What is this anyway? Close this. And so a little bit code review, when we already look at this, I mean, not only that, I guess it already, most of you are not the most interested. And welcome in the audience, Nate. So, I mean, first of all, I find this amazing work, and I want to encourage each and everyone. Why do I make here this code work? And yeah, going through code review, I want to motivate everyone to contribute more to open source. Also, Earth Overshoot Day, right? Use your stuff longer, like a PS3. Unlike, yes, I brought a new one, but if you have it a decade, just continue using it. Still amazing. Or other fun stuff like Sony Vaio P or whatever, just use it. You run some text email client, and anyway, and code each and every day, contribute something back. Only so my biggest concern here with this driver release is that, as amazing as it is that Kevin Brace is doing this maintenance work, it's a little bit beating a little bit dead horse here, not because it's so entirely super vintage, but because acceleration for this kind of drivers, this are, I was holding, actually I could have nothing better than having some vintage drivers around. Let's plug back some microphone here. And as much as we are here huge fans, which would be, let's see, our vintage stuff, so this is not the S3 that would be archived in our amazing storage, but just the amazing rendition Verity here, which would be the Xenius. And we want to continue with this. As much as we are a fan of this, the problem is that the X server removed support for this kind of 2D acceleration quite some time ago, namely in completely rewritten in X3 86.4, which was over a decade ago, and it was removed again in Xorg server 1.13, which is also in the meantime also already a decade ago or so, which makes me, I don't like this very much. So honestly, this was not that much code. Yes, the X driver, I mean, first of all, it was the X acceleration architecture, but eventually the X developers didn't love it that much anymore, and they considered it a maintenance burden and keeping it around. And it's basically not used for the latest and greatest fancy cards. The difference is X acceleration architecture was for solid stuff, like solid lines, like single color, red, green, blue lines, triangles, rectangles and stuff, fills and patterns. It's basically the graphic of the 80s and certainly 90s and such. And it was replaced by EXA, the new, what is it even standing for, whatever, I forgot. Something, if you remember, something enhanced X or whatever, I don't know. And anyway, it doesn't really matter so much. The point is XR is the modern, but even that is kind of, yeah, maybe phasing out a while. The difference is XR is for transparent stuff, so XR does not have line acceleration and not like maybe solid rectangles, but it's not even meant for solid rectangles. It's meant for having some graphic buffers and like blitting them, like with alpha, blending them, modulated with transparency. So it's all about like mostly transparency and such, and then like true type acceleration, but only you have the true type vector fonts in some off-screen buffer, and then having modern like this kind of font acceleration with transparency and not this old-fashioned bit mapped solid only one color stuff. So it was removed a long time ago, and what I find really sad and why I think it to some degree the maintenance work here is a little bit, yeah, not really sure the best time invested. Maybe Kevin should better work on making the VR Open Chrome drivers the most amazing, because without this acceleration, so this driver is basically fully unaccelerated. You basically don't really need this driver much. The only thing it's probably doing is mode setting, which then again the people and the Xorg authors and developers don't even want to have it in the user space. They want it in the kernel space, which I'm also not so. Anyway, you have maybe seen, if you're interested in this stuff, we made plenty of videos in microkernel terms. I'm not really agreeing with having this mode setting in the kernel, but that's what they did. And anyway, so basically it is not really that much better than an unaccelerated VESA or frame buffer driver, except having mode setting. And when you look on the changes here, convert XA alias word, so most of the stuff is if deft out here, if XR age. So the only thing is you could maybe theoretically, but compile it with a decade-old X server, but then again it's probably bitrotten and that also doesn't. But yeah, compact API, because the people like the Linux kernel keep renaming stuff and adding arguments. Yeah, bump versions. Then Eric as Raymond surprisingly here, but even that is just the man page. I really wonder how he ended up making a change here, but maybe he scanned and grabbed all the source repositories. Yeah, remove here some header, check malloc on success here actually. Here, amazing statically typed stuff, you name it. And basically all the changes are similar to this. Ref clock, remove unused BIOS size, yeah, and there's some configure stuff like, yeah, amazing changes, more autogen, readme like GitLab migration, discontinue use of some Abadan. Yeah, so that's basically it. Not really much to see. I only wanted to point this out, that some news, I have the feeling, just like out today's live stream, is just the point of making some live stream, so calling this out. But I only wanted to basically show you, for those who are not really familiar with code, this is not that frightening how to take a look on the log changes, on the changes. So maybe to read this, just some const char, char to const char, just to remove some, get rid of some compile warning. And yeah, that's it. That is what I mostly wanted to point out for people to get a better perspective in this busy open source news world. And yeah, I wish this would make more sense with acceleration architecture being there, but it's not. With that being said, it's probably time to move on to some more amazing PS3 hypervisor, similar code stuff. One of the changes I wanted to do here with the amazing PS3, and to put this in perspective, either you see me or you see the PS3, probably need not only even more amazing live streaming server, and not only camera for me, but for the PS3 that I showed the other day, but that's there. At least we have some screen capture. And what I wanted to do, until like I got the developer PS3, the DECR 1400, the regular PS3 that I had here the last decade, I couldn't video capture here for you guys to show you the amazing achievements. And the reason is because consumer PS3s always output the HDMI signal with HDCP, which back in the day was even a problem, like when this came out in 2006 or 7 or something of that sort, probably 2006, not all office displays had support for HDCP, the high definition content protection scheme. And I remember that news article said, yeah, you can run Linux, but you need a fancy display that supports HDCP. And I was not really that much affected. I think probably nearly all of our displays had this. But I mostly noticed this when I wanted to screen capture live stream this year or a year ago on YouTube, and I figured, damn, where is this even? Actually I can't really hold it to the camera but you have seen this in my other videos. For all the YouTube setup I have here already, I had not zero, nada, not a single HDMI capture thing here. Only for the YouTube live streaming video production stuff I had not to buy one but two, and none of the two, one cheap Chinese no-name thing and one of this Epiphan binary only crap, none of them can capture with HDCP. And yeah, now you see we have HDCP capture, and let's see, I added this already, this probably here, this should boot. Let's see if this boots. I've not, so the first time I try this here live on YouTube. I hope the video detection stuff comes up with this mode here, and it does. Amazing stuff. And the only problem is for all the stuff that usually I try to use something and it doesn't work for me because reasons, something doesn't work and fails and whatever. For all the stuff that fails, at least, by the way, we probably should, which scene would that be? Is this, too many scenes, here. As I said, I changed the HDMI capture. This is where my scene setup today is reversed in terms anyway. Unfortunately, I can't share it to you because it will not work on consumer PS3s, but at least for me, not only do I have twice the memory for the amazing developer tool, but I finally have HDCP less HDMI capture. And yes, if you want to do this at home, you can buy one of those HDMI splitter stuff for cheap on eBay or Amazon or somewhere. Maybe use the affiliate links below that we earn some cents here for financing all our open source work. And so how this is done, this is done in the XMB on the Game OS. You have an option on the developer tool to disable HDCP. Why you would need this as a developer, well, I have to be thankful that it's there, because otherwise I wouldn't have this. I would argue even as a developer you don't really need that much. But by the way, I hope audio is okay, because right now I capture from the second HDMI capture that I usually don't use. Yeah, how does it work? It is an hypervisor call, of course, because everything is on the PS3. It runs in a hypervisor, so everything we interact with the hardware is multiplexed there, and like KVM and Xen and stuff. And so this is hypervisor call here on the AV Manager, HDMI mode 40,001 hex. And to my surprise, this was implemented. So well, it saved me a ton of work, because I was thinking, because it is not documented here. You see here the get HDCP key here is documented with some hypervisor packet here on the serial, some virtual word here. I think it's somewhere written here. Yeah, I guess VUART 0 AV Manager. And I was already thinking, damn, I don't have the packet format here. This will be a pain to reverse engineer or something. And to my surprise, voila, it's usually everything fails on me, but here on the one is a super edit. Nobody has probably used this in decades. So all the people, the code was, I probably should take a look on the history, but the code was certainly there for a very long time, a decade, and probably only 5 people in the world ever used this, and I'm the 6th or something of that sort. Maybe the developer at Sony with the official Sony OS, and yeah, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, 5, 6 people. So it just works. Can also log in and start the X server here that you see something more for the live streams to come, code review wise. So how does it work? And the reason I've not seen this, I was looking in the PS3 frame buffer, but it was not there. By the way, where's our why is our capture gone? Hello? That was working earlier for whatever reason that is gone. Or maybe, could it be that this is strange? So anyway, doesn't really matter. It was there before. It's more important what the code does. I can take a look in another day why this video feed is gone there. Maybe Xorg server resetting the mode doesn't keep this HDCP. Anyway, so this is not in the frame buffer. This is in driver PS3 AV. See, as the code looks like this: PS3 underscore set underscore video mode cont. Whatever cont is constant. I don't know, something continued. And so the code always, and it's even documented here, retail PS3 product doesn't support this. In a way, it would be interesting to see when this was added, if this was really there. Back in the day, the problem is, how long is this in Git? So, but first I show you this, so that is here. So it compares here the ID. I think it gets this here back or something. If this includes the PS3 AV mode HDCP off bit mask, then it is setting here, calling here with this command AV HDCP off. So it was always there, most likely for decades. Works for nobody except for me. Thanks for whoever added this, maybe some official Sony developer. We can take a look in the second, because the file of course is copyright Sony. Of course it's GPL, but yeah, 2007, maybe it's there since 2007. Let's see on maybe the log, probably doesn't have blame here, right? Let's see here, 2007, Gerd Witterhöfen. So let's see, does this already HDCP? Yeah, the original, so there you have it, the original driver from 2007. This is really, really, in my opinion, ironic piece of history that the driver always had HDCP disablement, and probably only the Sony developer and maybe the reverse engineering. There are a couple of people, so the code has probably accepted Sony, a handful of Sony people, and people who have reverse engineered the hypervisor stuff. Of course not me, I'm not doing this stuff. Sony, don't come to me. But other people who have done this, and probably they have not even noticed because they just had a display. Nobody of them probably wanted to capture the video there, so probably I'm the first one except at Sony who makes some good use of that. At least nice stuff for more amazing videos to come, except I need to see why the X server resulted in a black screen. Anyway, so much to this code review. Amazing treat of history. Thanks Sony for adding this in 2007 for me to enjoy in 2019. I hope you learned something here from the EXA, also these acronyms like EXA, the 2D classic 2D acceleration architecture, and EXA 4. This is phasing a little bit out, so under the hood it can still use EXA or the drivers still, even though there is this glamour, there is actually a 2D not specific code in the Xorg server that can use, like for latest AMD Radeon use this because they don't even have a 2D function anymore. So AMD has removed this fixed function 2D stuff as far as they tell us, and there is this glamour, I think, code. I think it's probably used for the latest and greatest, probably AMD cards. So then all the transparent, like transparent in terms of you have here some fancy window and transparent text and stuff, and transparent images for all the fancy web stuff, like here this fancy websites. Anyway, I hope you learned something and enjoyed this live stream here together. Always amazing that people tune in case someone has a question. We will also not only continue with the PS3, thanks God for all the time spent getting this to run, at least I didn't spend time for HDCP, annoying digital rights management stuff. At least one thing that works, the most unexpected thing ever that worked, amazing stuff. And yeah, also fun fact, someone told me on Twitter, the amazing fans and family there on the internet told me on Twitter that they think the hypervisor calls, because I pointed out earlier that the hypervisor calls this amazing cursor API here, that is also here, that I implemented the other day, cursor position and offset. They think, I'm not even sure if the game OS is using this, but they think that it was added for other OS, and then just in this year, due to the reverse engineering, or no, actually, whatever came first, whatever, I still think the PS3 would not have broken as it was if Sony would not have removed other OS from the Linux fans and family. So it looks very much, some people told me the speculation, so that is hearsay, I don't know, but of course it makes sense. Game OS doesn't need a hardware cursor for the mouse here so much, so maybe this was mostly added for other OS, and then just that month or year Sony took it from us, because it's not available in 3.15 and it is present in 3.41. Probably should Google when Sony removed other OS. Actually, I'm not really sure, it's a long time. Let's see when that was. Other OS is probably documented on Wikipedia, I would think. Otherwise, as there are so many people in the audience, if someone has a question, I hope my chat reloads. Removed due to security in, yes, 3.21 in April, April the 1st, amazing April 1st joke, thanks for that, you fools. And 3.21, so that was way before it was added. I really wonder why it was added to 3.41. That was way after Sony already removed other OS. And well, you could use it for some games, like some strategy game or something, like some 2.5D or something like StarCraft or whatever. Of course, there are use cases in games, but I have no idea if any game or maybe the web browser, actually, the web browser integrated in Game OS could actually use it. But anyway, thanks Sony for adding HDCP to the Linux driver, and thank you for adding the hardware cursor. Without that, it would be really hard to break into the hypervisor and RSX to do this without the hypervisor calls. Not really sure if you could get somehow to get the RSX to DMA this into the cursor register. Probably not really easy if it's at all possible. So thanks for the two things. Of all the other stuff you took away from us, but at least these two things are there. Not really questions, surprisingly, in the audience. I wonder slightly why is my chat not loading, but probably it should. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. Stay tuned for all the more videos to come, and if you have any comments to anything, Flame Wars or not, leave it in the comments below. I hope to see you soon for all the next videos and live streams to come.